The topic today is how we can learn and what we can learn from migrant and refugee parents and their engagement with school and the learning of their children for better engagement of the parents, but also better engagement of their children in school. And I think it's just fair to have like a flash of who we are, because probably some of you have not yet heard about Parents International. So as Max was saying, we are an international organization with the overall mission of supporting parents in raising their children. And we are providing direct support to parents, but we're also providing training, coaching, mentoring, and different tools on topics that are important for parents, to professionals, and even academia and policy, because that has a multiplier effect. Max has already said that we are an independent research, advocacy, and training organization, and all our work is based on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We are a membership organization, although we are a foundation. It's a funny setting because in the Netherlands, where we are registered, a foundation can have members. And the pro side of having a foundation is that there are no power struggles. Who is bigger, who has more money, but everybody is equal. We have member organizations that are parent membership organizations. We have member organizations that work with or for parents. And we also have individual members who are mostly either experienced previous leaders of parent organizations and still want to contribute, or researchers in parenting related or parental engagement related fields. We work with an international team of 18 people currently from 10 European countries, but not all of them live in Europe. And we also have an international scientific advisory board chaired by Janet Goodall, who was the first speaker of this series. And also, I don't see all the participants now, but I know that one of our team members, Herminio Correa, is here. He's the person who is representing us at the Council of Europe's International NGO Conference, and actually he is chairing the Child Rights Committee currently of the Council of Europe. We have quite a number of languages spoken by our team, which means that we can deliver trainings and also do research in a number of languages. And we have a facility in Amsterdam where we can provide facilities for research, and also we can do trainings, and we have our office here. Just a little glimpse on our geographical coverage. The blue countries are the ones where we have active projects, and the red ones are countries where we only have members from. But of course, it's really important that we have members in so many countries. I put some logos of relevant projects, but I will come back to this. I mean, relevant for the topic. I wanted to just highlight two of these. One of them was the EEPN project with it was a large European project with 38 participants from 26 countries. The European Education Policy Network on Teachers and School Leaders. And from the research done in EEPN, we have a relatively up-to-date picture on teacher skills and competences, the current ones and also the ones that are necessary. And the other one that I wanted to highlight is our joint work with the Brookings Institution that I will quote later on, because I will reference some of the research that we've been doing, and I will come back to the others. So, as I said, our starting point is the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that defines the role of parents in the education of their children. And even though in some countries that have adopted the UN Convention, the schools are, according to the convention, reporting to the parents and not to the state, because the convention clearly says that the sole responsibility for educating, bringing up your children is with the parents. And it also defines the role of the state as a supportive one, obliging the states to support parents in their work as educators in ways parents need. Of course, what I'm not saying that parents should be there demanding schools to do what they want, but I think it's really important to highlight that according to the highest law, schools are accountable to parents. And it has a lot of implications that I will come back to again. Also, it's important to state as a starting point that we know it from research that parents are the primary educators of their children, which does not only mean that they are the first educators. You know, nobody wants a formal education institution to teach a child to walk and talk, but also we know from research that parents are the most impactful of the educators up to about age 11. It's not necessarily about the learning content, but it is about the attitude to learning. And it has nothing to do with the education level of the parents. Janet always highlights that the only thing that we need is that parents celebrate learning. And that sets a positive attitude. It's never the teachers, because unfortunately teachers don't really like it. Research is quite clear on this primary role being taken over by the peer group and not the teachers when children become younger adolescents. What we also know and what we have to consider when we talk about the engagement of migrant and refugee parents is that all parents help the learning of their children. Some of them might not be aware of it. So for example, with parents coming from very disadvantaged backgrounds, sometimes you have to make them face the fact that a lot of things were learned from them or taught by them. Some parents will not educate their children in any field related to school curriculum, but still there will be a plethora of learning. And also there will be some parents who need more help from professionals, and we do have a professional responsibility for that. So these are the starting points that I wanted to put down. And it's not only about engaging with migrant and refugee parents, but engaging with parents in general. So what research tells us about the situation on parental engagement, and especially the engagement of migrant and refugee parents? This is your average teacher. In most countries, the overwhelming majority of teachers are middle class, middle-aged women coming from the majority of the country. In Europe, in Canada, in the US, it's mostly white people. We also know from research that they have very little experience and training in working with diverse groups of adults. They probably have a very good training on working with a diverse group of children. So they have little training and very often very little experience properly working with a diverse group of parents. We also know that they have very little training and often very little experience in different communication skills. And also, if they are genuinely interested in the parents and they have a curiosity, they should have some basic research skills that very often also teacher training doesn't really provide to them. We also need from the EEPN research that I quoted earlier that most teachers are in need of having soft skills or transversal skills trainings, especially in the fields of self-awareness and critical thinking. And these two are really important when we are talking about the engagement of migrant and refugee parents, because the first thing that teachers should be really aware of is their own prejudices and or biases to be able to address any challenges that they are facing with newly arrived migrants or refugee families. We also know from research that teachers need more trauma consciousness because it's not part of teacher training, and very often they are reacting to symptoms and not reacting to the underlying trauma. Why is it important? It is important today very much because we have a lot of traumatized children because of the COVID fear-mongering, because of the wars, but also those who left their country and came to a new one, even if they didn't have to flee, changing your country is a trauma. So you have to consider those people arriving to your country freshly as traumatized ones. And we also know that the overwhelming majority of teachers, if you ask them about their main challenges, parental engagement will be among the top three for a number of reasons. And this is something that we really need to address because teachers are aware of this problem that they are facing. So we have schools where the overwhelming situation, the overwhelming majority of teachers are like this woman in the picture. And then we have the parents who are absolutely diverse. They are diverse in their levels of education, their view on school, on their family settings, on their previous experiences. And very often their type of knowledge is totally different from teacher knowledge. There is this bad joke, but there is some little truth in it that a teacher is a person who started school at the age of 5 or 6 and never left. Which, well, let's face it, this is the situation. We went to school, we went to university, went back to school, and we never left. Teachers come from all walks of life, and they are the role models that we have to consider when we are thinking about the future of children we are teaching, because they will also be as diverse when they grow up as the parents that we work with. It's also very loud and clear that parents, regardless of their background, want to be heard and seen. They want the school to speak their opinion, and they also want to be seen as people, not just the father or mother of little Tom. For the overwhelming majority of parents, we also have to consider that they have one single schooling experience, which is their own. So as professionals, we have to show them the alternatives and have to make them experience it. And we have to be very conscious that they went to school, they saw that one school, and they probably don't have an understanding of modern school student-centered methods or just the way school is working in another country. Also, another thing that we have to consider with parents, and I have to highlight that it is not only migrant and refugee parents, is a language barrier. Of course, when you are a newcomer in a country and you don't speak the language of the country, this language barrier is absolutely obvious. But what we also see from experience and research, that very often teachers start building a barrier themselves by starting to introduce jargon. So you have to consider that even if the parents already speak the language of the country at a certain level, they may not have the vocabulary for education. And we have a colleague we've worked with, she works in very disadvantaged Roma communities. Very often they just go to the schools with the parents to remind the teachers that parents will not understand notions like competences or inclusion, but it has to be explained to them. And as mentioned before, with the parents, you have to consider the most challenging ones, the ones that are challenging to include, but also those who pose a challenging behavior are usually impacted by some kind of trauma. The recent research with the Brookings Institution shows that while teachers very often think that the parents are either not interested or just don't have time to engage, the perception of this situation by the parents is that they don't feel welcome or they are even frightened to go into the school. And these are the parents that we want to engage. What is the situation with policy? I'm going to be very, very open and say that I think that one of the biggest challenges is that there is no recognition of the time that a teacher must spend on engaging with parents and families. So on this, we always have some kind of an argument with the teacher trade unions. who say that teachers are already overworked. And we always say, but yes, but we are there to argue that it has to be counted as a compulsory part of your working hours, because otherwise the educational process will just be broken. Also, we went through teacher training curricula from different countries, and given university autonomy, a high number of teacher training curricula from different countries. And what we see is that the three most important elements that are necessary knowledge, skills, and competences for teachers for engaging with migrant and refugee parents, namely parental engagement in general, working in a multicultural context, and having trauma-informed approaches is missing from most pre-service training curricula, totally. And if it is included, it is mostly theoretical. So when they go to the school and they first have to practice, then they don't have any practical experiences. In most countries, to become a math teacher, I'm a math teacher originally, you have to teach some lessons under supervision, but it's not a requirement in the overwhelming majority of countries to engage with parents, having support present, or have some kind of multicultural experience with some help present. So teachers have to figure it out on their own. Also, the in-service teacher training offer is really scarce in this field. So by the time teachers realize that they need training, it's not really available. And also there is little incentive. I don't really understand why, but often when this kind of training is offered, regardless of the fact that engaging parents is within their top 3 challenges, teachers rather opt for something else. But school leaders are really key in this field because they can make their teachers join such trainings. But as I said, it should be policy level that highly encourages teachers to engage in in-service training, and also it should be included in pre-service training programs. And the last element, it's totally different from what I've been talking about, that is a main barrier to the engagement of migrant and refugee parents, is that proper open doors policies that would welcome them at any time in the school, to make it possible for them to experience what's happening to their children, is often made impossible by restrictive legislation. And by restrictive legislation, I also mean, for example, the obligation in Ireland or the UK to have police clearance to enter the school building when there are children, because a refugee parent will not go to the police. And if they go, they are likely not get the clearance. So this is what policy should consider when they are thinking about the better engagement. And last but not least, I wanted to just highlight some experiences of practitioners. One important thing that we have experienced in our work is that normally what works for migrant parents works for other groups of low socioeconomic status parents. For example, whatever works as migrant inclusion in Western Europe totally properly works as inclusion of Roma parents in Eastern Europe, and vice versa. So we can learn from experiences that are targeting minority parents or parents with low levels of education in one country as a good practice in working with migrant parents in another country. Of course, a lot of things will not work as they are. This is the reason why I personally hate the notion of best practice, because it implies that there is nothing better. I think that every practice that works is an inspiring practice, and you always have to see how it can work in your own context. Also, the practical experience shows, and this is an outcome of the Brookings research again, that there is a major mismatch between not just what parents and teachers expect from schools and each other, but also there is a mismatch in the perception of each other. So we cannot avoid starting to talk to each other. One of them, what I mentioned, is that teachers often say that parents are not interested, while parents don't feel welcome to join school. It's totally clear that teachers don't get the necessary support at the practical level. And it is also clear that school leadership, and specifically working with school leaders on parental engagement, is also essential. What we see is that if a leader is committed to engaging parents, and well, for us, it goes hand in hand with having the children's voice included, then 80% of their teachers will follow them. Oh, sorry, I went on. And we also see that although there is a lot of literature showing that teachers should aim for equal partnerships with parents, it is not really happening due to a lack of time, due to a lack of skills, and also due to a lack of support. This was the grim picture, but hopefully there are already some ideas on how we can go on. And I wanted to just show you some tools that we have developed, and also some very simple examples that can be used or that could be translated to your own context. So we had these very nice logos in a slide earlier on, and now I'm going to go through them very, very fast. In Open School Doors, we were developing a teacher training and also tools for teachers to be really open and understanding to the engagement of migrant and refugee parents, and also develop tools to inform parents what it means that they are welcome at school. The Parent or Us project is one of our most successful projects. This has been voted one of the 12 most innovative and most scalable parental engagement approaches. It is a mentoring project where migrant and refugee parents, and in Eastern Europe, we've also worked with Roma families, mentor their peers. We choose mentors who are already better engaged with school than average, and then they are mentoring their peers. So far, there is nothing innovative in it, and also nothing revolutionary. The innovative part is that the same mentors are also mentoring the teachers for them to understand the mindset, the values, and the expectations of their peers. Ferraclos was a STEM project that was focusing on having an open schooling and whole school approach. It is a project where we develop tools for engaging the whole community and to help the school to find those allies that can help them to work with different disadvantaged groups. So how to work with the local migrant communities, the local library, even the local parks if the parents feel comfortable going there. The Parent Hub project was the first project in the field in our organization. We started it when everybody was struggling in Europe with the 2015 refugee crisis. And what we found is that if a parent can build, a migrant or refugee parent can build a trustful relationship with the teacher, then they will very likely turn to that teacher for other information. So in Parent Help, we developed a large database for most European countries, but now we also have some others, and it's totally open. So if any of you is interested and wants to get the answers for the catch questions we have there for your own country context, you only need to send us the answers. We can upload them, and we can also do translations. So very simple answers are available for a huge number of questions on things related to having a child in a new country, from formalities like how do I enroll my child to a school, to what am I doing if we are invited to a birthday party. And the answers are available for different age groups, and also they are available in languages that our local partners requested, in the languages of their biggest migrant and refugee groups. And also in Parent Help, we have developed a library that since then became the to-go place. So there you will find most of the materials that I'm talking about. It seems to be really a to-go place for people who want to work on parental engagement, because we have a huge number of visitors. COMAP is a relatively recent project where we were working with artistic methodologies to overcome trauma. And there are some very simple tools that we developed in COMAP that can be adjusted to your local needs. And Parents Engage just finished in January, and we developed a really good and comprehensive teacher training. The manual is available for downloading specifically for engaging migrant and refugee parents. And the last bit on this slide is that probably you cannot read it, but it's the Brookings playbook that we worked together with on Brookings, and there will be a new tool, collaboration, conversation starters that will be launched in about 10 days. These are general tools that you can use for parental engagement. Look them up. As I said, most of them are directly downloadable from the Parent Help library, which is library.parenthelp.eu. And some very simple examples, because these are, bigger approaches. These are just cute pictures, but I'm going to give you some simple examples. The first one, the top left slide, is from a charity shop, but it shows a general approach where parents' handicraft skills are used for creating income for the school. This is an example from the Real Pearl Foundation and their charity shop. Every single item is done by parents, Roma background, no education, and most of them have never been employed. And the interesting part is that all of the items have artistic pieces. Like, I don't know how much you can see from the pictures, but there are drawings. Those are done by the children of these parents. So they are actually working with the artwork. But it can be done in a much simpler way. We were working with very disadvantaged parents. We knew that they were good at handicrafts, and we had handicrafts afternoons before Easter and Christmas. They were making simple things like greeting cards and bookmarks, and then we were selling it at a charity event. The trick was that all the teachers participated in the handicrafts. Often they were much worse in the handicrafts themselves than the parents, but we always had a hidden agenda, and we decided beforehand what we are going to talk about during these afternoons. Why is it a simple but very powerful example? Because it is in a situation when the parents feel confident, when they feel seen, they are appreciated, they can show their skills, and that way we are equal with them when they are talking about topics that we want to have. Another example, it is working in the UK, and I also know a Swedish example, when you are building on the basic skills of parents who never worked. In the UK, it is one of the schools of, schools of sanctuary, where the school bought some tools. The refugee parents can only come in the afternoon when the children are not there anymore, but they are using their cooking skills so that they can cook national dishes for team building activities for businesses. So they are doing really good money. The picture itself with the cooking mothers is from Sweden. Actually, it's a social enterprise called Yola Trappan, where they solely work with Muslim mothers who never worked. and they have a cooking business, they have a sewing business. They are basically tailoring the curtains and things for IKEA. They have a professional cleaning service. They are building on the knowledge and skills that the parents have without having any education. Another example from a little bit earlier on, starting from 2005, in the Include Ad project, our colleagues from Barcelona, led by Ramon Fletcher, developed different inclusion methodologies. And one of them was inviting the refugee parents into the classroom as teaching assistants, making collaborative learning possible. The interesting outcome is that what they found is that there is no difference if the parents are working as teaching assistants for their own children or if they are working with children who are not their own. One more example is creating opportunities for the teachers, parents, and students to learn from each other. So creating learning situations when we are openly saying that we can learn from the children, and we can adjust these learning situations in a way. There will be elements that the children are the best at, there will be things that the parents are the best at, and there will be some things that, of course, that the teachers are the best at. One of the examples of our own activities is the so-called Future Memory Project, where we're working with groups of teachers, parents, and children in the same group. And it is a really powerful tool. Children can be proud of their own parents. Teachers realize how much they can learn from children and also from parents coming from different backgrounds. And also it creates a trustful kind of circle. So also it's easier to talk about things that otherwise teachers and parents would like to talk about. And the last single example is from a school in Amsterdam called Denise, where they are putting a lot of emphasis on the basic right to our refugee and migrant children to mother tongue. And one of the activities that they are doing, this is what I wanted to quote, is that when they start a new element in the curriculum, they create a vocabulary. So they list the words that will be necessary to know for that item in the curriculum, and they send it home. And they ask every family to fill the form with their own words. So they collect the vocabulary in often 10, 15, 20 languages. Why is it positive? Parents are engaged because they know what their children are going to study at school. Children have a powerful support with simple things that they probably already know in their mother tongue, but they probably don't know in the language of instruction. And the fact that they have a mother tongue that is as valuable as the language of instruction is a very positive experience for both the parents and the children. So these were the very simple examples that I wanted to show you, and probably it will spark some discussion. And just to finish with, I have some additional considerations that you have to be aware of when you are thinking about the engagement of refugee and migrant parents. One thing, and I'm using this picture on the top left for two different things, but I think they are very important. One is that when you are engaging with migrant and refugee parents, in an ideal case, and also for any other parent, you should follow the nothing about them without them principle. So you should always have the child present in the situation for a number of reasons, but one of them is that the presence of the child very often prevents us from saying things that we would not say if the child was not present. So that we would not say in the presence of the child. So very often we have to think twice and we become more polite to each other. But especially for migrant and refugee children, you should never use this situation for using the child as a translator. Because in the triangle of a parent, child, teacher, the child is an equal player, and you should have other arrangements. If you need a translator, it has to be another parent. It can even be another child. It can be a colleague. If you are lucky, you will probably have a translator, but don't use the children as translators. Older siblings often act as translators, or they are just included in the discussion, but not the child who is impacted by your conversation. The biggest picture on this slide is, of course, very familiar for everybody. It is Maslow's pyramid. But this is very important when we work with people who come from troubled situations, from low socioeconomic background, who have just arrived in a country. You have to be aware that while school and the formal education of that child is your priority, it might not be the priority of the parent. And this is one of the reasons why we included these practical things in the Parent Hub project, because often the good engagement with a refugee parent starts with supporting them and guiding them how they can get financial support, how they can get housing support, how they can avoid starving. But until their physiological and safety needs are not fulfilled, you will not be able to engage any parent. They don't have to be refugee or migrant ones, because it's just not their priority by nature. And the last thing I wanted to highlight with this really nice guy here, and it is especially typical for refugee parents, that very often a problem that you face is that in a situation when you are the teacher and he or she is the refugee parent, you have a much higher social status that he or she has. But you have to consider that probably that parent came from a social situation that was much higher than the social status of a teacher in their country. We know that a lot of people with legal backgrounds, with medical degrees, are just washing dishes because their diplomas are not recognized in the country where they arrived. And if you are not aware of this really challenging situation, then your engagement, your conversations with these parents will be much, much more difficult. And last but not least, what I wanted to say is that I know that in all of our countries, we are putting a lot of emphasis on political correctness. But especially when you work with migrant and refugee people, you have to remember that your job is not to change them. And also the reality is not what you are supposed to act upon. We, for example, use the identity wheel. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that tool. Very often in teacher trainings, where you have to evaluate which are the most important elements of your identity for you, which are the least important ones, and which are the most visible ones for your students or for the parents of your students. And we always have a big discussion on why race is included. When you work with migrant and especially refugee parents, you may have a training saying that race is totally unimportant, but you have to remember that even if you don't want the parents to see you as a white, middle-class, middle-aged woman, they will see you like that. And also they will require you to see them as being different from you. And basically with these additional considerations, I would just like to open the floor to discussions. Thank you very much. It was probably a little long, but it's a huge topic that we had to cover. And I'm going to ask for questions, comments, any of your challenges, experiences, and I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you.